In the years following the conclusion of Disney's Star Wars sequel trilogy, it's become increasingly clear that the story we got was made up as they went along, thrown together at the last minute. In the case of the trilogy's final installment, Episode 9, it makes sense when you hear about the trajectory of its production. It was originally set to be directed by Colin Trevorrow, from a script written by Trevorrow and Derek Connolly. These plans fell apart for reasons that are unclear. The official line is that Trevorrow departed production following creative differences with Lucasfilm President Kathleen Kennedy, though if I were to speculate, I imagine the tragic death of Carrie Fisher probably threw a wrench into things as well. Trevorrow and Connolly were later replaced by Episode 7 director JJ Abrams and writer Chris Terrio, who penned the version that would eventually come to screen as The Rise of Skywalker. However, in the years that have followed, many details about Trevorrow and Connolly's vision for Episode 9 have leaked online, including dozens of pieces of concept art and a screenplay revealing the title of their ill-fated outing to be Duel of the Fates, which we're going to explore today. Now, I feel like this must be said. The following is a walkthrough of an early draft of the vision these filmmakers had for their version of Episode 9. There likely would have been many changes before the script would have been filmed. In fact, several pieces of concept art leaked for Duel of the Fates depict moments that are nowhere to be seen in the script that has surfaced, so these were either cut before this iteration or added after it. We will never know what exactly would have made it to the silver screen, so consider the following a rough draft of an interesting what-if story for the Star Wars universe. So, here's the Star Wars Episode 9 we never got: Duel of the Fates. Quickly, before we get started, if you enjoy what you're seeing here, please consider leaving a like and subscribing for more. And if you really want to do the channel solid, ring the bell so you're notified every time I upload. That is basically the only way for YouTube to actually acknowledge our content, and anything you do to help in this regard would be very much appreciated. I'd love for more people to see this stuff. I put a lot of work into it, and I would just really appreciate you for it, so thanks. 10 years have passed since the Battle of Crate, and the First Order has tightened its iron grip on the galaxy. Only a few planets scattered through the stars remain unoccupied, and treason is punished by death. Supreme Leader Kylo Ren has silenced all interstellar communications to suffocate growing unrest, but the Resistance, led by General Leia Organa, has launched a secret mission to forge a path to freedom. Above the planet Kuat, a First Order transport touches down within the massive orbital ring, a shipyard that constructs much of the Imperial Armada. Several droids exit the transport, including a graphite BB unit, which carefully splits from the group. The BB unit swerves through the base, scuffing against a wall to avoid another droid and revealing orange underneath its matte black paint. It's BB-8, undercover within the ring. On one of Kuat's moons, Rose Tico, hiding within a cramped room, checks in with BB-8, who taps into one of the ring's terminals to transfer data to the Resistance fighter. She decrypts the data and finds what she's looking for: the location and schedule of an approaching dropship. Elsewhere on the moon, the dropship touches down, spitting out a batch of migrant workers from across the galaxy. Amongst them is Finn, disguised in rags, and Poe Dameron, face hidden by robes. They approach a security checkpoint where stormtroopers execute another suspicious alien after they discover a weapon on him. Tense, the pair enter the scanner, but it clicks off. The stormtroopers have lost power, BB-8's doing for sure. The droid hacks the scanners, allowing the armed Resistance fighters through the checkpoint without issue. Finn and Poe enter a vast work settlement connected to the orbital rings via a space elevator, which also descends into the core of the moon. The pair make contact with a furry alien named Biss Kova, their Resistance mole on the site. They follow Kova into his home, making no notice of a suspicious Tusken raider eyeing them from afar. Inside, Finn and Poe meet up with Rose, who has been hiding with Kova's family for the past 2 weeks. The group plans a strike against the orbital ring. This is an opportunity to take out a major source of the First Order's fuel supply. They move towards the base of the power shaft, the official name for the space elevator, signaling BB-8 to lock the doors and be ready with a shuttle. The Tusken stalks them from a distance, unseen. Poe, Finn, and Rose make quick work of the troopers guarding the power shaft base, arming some thermal detonators and tossing them into the upward particle flow connecting Kuat's moon to the ring. But as the trio exit the base, they find themselves face to face with a platoon of stormtroopers. Poe times out the thermal detonators in his head before signaling his companions to dive for cover, anticipating a large explosion. But nothing happens. The The First Order have updated their defenses, which swallowed the explosions, anticipating such tactics from the Resistance. The Tusken Raider steps away from the crowd, igniting a double-sided blue lightsaber and expertly slicing through most of the Stormtrooper platoon, as Poe, Finn, and Rose fire at the rest from their cover. The Tusken's mask hits the dirt, revealing Rey, now older, stronger, and more powerful. Finn and Poe ask her why she's on Kuat, but Rey shrugs them off while she gracefully takes out other stormtroopers, throwing her lightsaber like a boomerang and catching it without even looking. The weapon has been made from pieces of Anakin Skywalker's shattered lightsaber, spliced together with Rey's staff. Poe is particularly worried that Rey followed them, preferring her to have stayed behind in the safety of the Resistance headquarters. There's something affectionate behind his words. As Rey uses the Force to push several stormtroopers away, the migrant workers realize who she is. They begin to chant, "Jedi! Jedi!" blocking the path of even more troopers to protect Rey. Some throw rocks and others take up improvised arms to fight back. A revolution has just started on Kuat. Poe begins to pull Rey away, telling her that they have to leave now, but Rey wants to stay and help the migrants. TIE fighters shriek overhead, and though it pains her, Rey knows that Poe is right and that they have to leave. As Finn moves to follow them, a fallen stormtrooper grabs his ankle, his helmet broken open. He locks eyes with Finn. They recognize each other, memories from a lifetime ago long forgotten. Finn pulls away, but he is clearly shaken by the experience. Their plan now exposed, the party hitches a ride up the power shaft on a maintenance elevator that runs along its side. They're going to need another ride off of Kuat, and Poe sets his sights on the massive, miles-wide Eclipse dreadnought. Finn and Rey argue with him in disbelief, but Poe insists that he can fly anything. At the top of the turbo lift, they board a glide rover and use it to board the Eclipse. For once, the party is lucky. Most of the Eclipse crew are on dock leave, and only the bridge crew remain on board. As Rose holds the First Order crew at gunpoint, Rey uses a powerful Jedi mind trick to pacify them, and the hypnotized crew help the group set course for the Resistance home base in the Nurawan system. Sparks continue to fly between Rey and Poe, who finish each other's sentences as they get the Eclipse up and ready for escape. The ship roughly disengages from the orbital ring, as Poe has troubles at the piloting controls. Who inverts their steering controls? He wonders aloud. BB-8 manages to eject itself from the maintenance craft it was piloting, once bound for the planet to pick up the Resistance party, and it manages to land inside one of the Eclipse hangars. With the droid on board, the Eclipse jumps to light speed, vanishing from sight. Upon hearing the Last Jedi was amongst the Resistance commandeers, Admiral Vaughn, the commanding officer of the Kuat shipyards, orders a subordinate to contact the Knights of Ren. They quickly arrive aboard the Knife 9, a jagged, sinister ship shaped like an arrowhead. Of the 6 that once followed Kylo, only 4 exit the ship. Jadek, their rogue, Ott and Laurel, who work as a pair, and Hataska, their leader. Intimidated by their silent presence, Vaughn informs the Knights that a Veil cipher was uploaded to the Resistance droid BB-8. They'll be able to track the Jedi with it. Regardless, without a word, Hataska draws the legendary Darksaber and cuts Vaughn down for his failure. On Coruscant, the once vibrant capital of the Republic has fallen into disrepair, with more utilitarian structures built atop the Deco architecture of the planet's halcyon days. An urchin named Dade wanders through the streets, making his way to the city's central monument square. Here, the First Order capital towers above the city, jagged and top-heavy, balancing like a spinning top. Thousands have gathered in the square, as a ragged and hooded figure stands at its center, flanked by Capitol guards. A 4-story hologram of Armitage Hux, now Chancellor of the First Order, overshadows the crowd. He charges the hooded figure revealed to be a beaten Biskova from Kuat, with treason for helping the Resistance at the shipyards. But the Supreme Leader is not without mercy. Kova is offered his life in exchange for the location of the Resistance base, but Kova stands defiant. Irritated, Hux orders Kova to a guillotine installed in the square, a light blade as its edge. A woman in the crowd tries to cover Dade's eyes, but he pries her fingers away as the light blade falls. A visibly aged Hux, now with streaks of gray in his hair, enters the Capitol war room, full of alien warlords from across the galaxy. These are not typically the company Hux would keep, nor are these the allies the First Order would like to have. The warlords chide Hux for having the Eclipse fall into Resistance control, but Hux assures them that the ship will be found and recovered shortly. The First Order transmission blockade has silenced millions of systems, and any remaining intergalactic communication will be easy to find. Another warlord mentions that the blockade has not silenced localized systems. Many people have heard of the Last Jedi, and she inspires hope. Uprisings have popped up across the galaxy, which Hux dismisses as meaningless. They can send more soldiers to crush the spirits of the people and re-educate the youth. As for the Jedi, the Knights of Ren have been dispatched to deal with her. Sending what they see as zealots after the Last Jedi does not inspire confidence within these warlords, who demand to know where Kylo Ren is. Hux, frustrated himself, explains that the Supreme Leader seeks knowledge that will permanently solidify First Order rule in the galaxy. Elsewhere, on the ruined planet of Mustafar, a cloaked figure steps before Darth Vader's abandoned castle, untouched for decades. The figure removes his hood, revealing a weary and bearded Kylo Ren. He makes his way into the long-forgotten structure, finding Vader's personal chambers, a decrepit cathedral. And yet, Kylo Ren is not alone. Luke Skywalker's voice reaches from across the void, taunting Kylo for following the dark side to an empty tomb. Ren points out that the path of the light did not fare so well for Luke. He is nothing but a ghost now. Luke begs Kylo to go home to Leia, because the strength Snoke once promised Ben Solo has only made him feel hollow. Enraged, Kylo swings his lightsaber towards the voice, but only strikes empty air. A cold wind billows away. Kylo approaches an altar in the room, finding a Sith holocron within. This is what he's been looking for. He kneels before it, channeling the Force to open it, revealing a mote of energy within. It projects a hologram of Emperor Palpatine, the Sith Lord Darth Sidious, recorded long before Ben Solo was even born. It's a message for Darth Vader, instructing him to seek out Tor Valum in the Remnicor system should Luke Skywalker ever strike down the Emperor. Tor Valum was the master of the Sith Lord that instructed Sidious, and will teach Skywalker abilities that Vader is unable to himself in his damaged state, one that will allow the wielder to harness the untapped power of Mortis. The holocron alarms, and its lights turn red. It realizes that Kylo Ren is not Darth Vader, as much as he wishes to be, and this message was for Vader's ears only. A red lightning sparks from the holocron, striking Kylo in the face. Invasive energy pulses through Kylo's body, and raw, purple veins begin to streak through his skin. He screams in unbearable pain. At the Resistance base in the snowy rainforests of Corelay, Leia's eyes snap open, feeling the pain Kylo is in. Her hair is now long and gray, her robes white. She's older and wiser, surprisingly elegant for someone who has lost so much. Behind her, a now scarred Lieutenant Connix approaches with Chewbacca, who has not seemed to have aged a day, and they inform the general that the team from Kuat has returned. Connix gestures behind herself at the Eclipse, now escorted by X-Wings that look like insects beside the massive vessel. Leia storms onto the Eclipse bridge. As its First Order bridge crew is taken into custody, Rose rips the ID bars from the commanding officer's uniform, informing him that she collects them. Leia is frustrated, ordering a full scan of the ship to ensure that there are no other stormtroopers aboard, before ordering an evacuation of the Resistance base. Poe is confused. He had just joked that he'd always wanted a Star Destroyer like this, and Rose has disabled the homing beacon, but Leia is unwilling to bet all of their lives on that. She then notices Rey sitting alone, and privately asks Finn to talk to the Jedi about what is bothering her. Rey clearly needs a friend right now. When Finn approaches her, she explains that she feels like she failed the workers on Kuat, and she just left them all behind. Finn does his best to encourage her. They all believe in her, but Rey isn't sure she's strong enough to live up to any of their expectations. She admits that she's been having nightmares, and that she is somehow connected to Kylo Ren in a way that she cannot explain. Finn tells her that she has to shut him out. It's too late to redeem Ben Solo, but Rey disagrees. It's never too late to change, and it was Finn who taught her that. Within the Eclipse, Chewbacca discovers an enormous, miles-long arsenal of Imperial weaponry. Ships, walkers, assault vehicles, heavy artillery, the works. This could change the tide of the war. They could retake the capital with this much weaponry, they just need an army big enough to use it. The only issue is that they cannot rally anyone to use it because of the transmission blockade in place. Rey realizes that she knows a way to get around the transmission blockade. The ancient Jedi texts on Ahch-To speak of a Force beacon built into the Jedi Temple on Coruscant, designed to call outlying systems to war if the need ever arose. It should be old enough that the First Order can't block it, and made with Old Republic technology that has stood the test of time. It's a new hope, a chance for the Resistance to win the war. An ominous feeling overtakes Rey as she trains blindfolded at the Resistance base's Jedi dojo. Despite her doubts, she is both aggressive and elegant, but disturbance across the galaxy throws her off balance. On Coruscant, Kylo Ren is rushed to a medical bay. He is in worse shape than on Mustafar, damaged veins now stretching down his neck. Beskar, Mandalorian iron is melted and poured upon the wound, a metal bandage upon his face. Rey touches her cheek, echoes of his pain within her. A vision strikes them both, of a mountain and a temple older than time. An ancient chamber lies within, 2 thrones built into the rock, a well of light at the center of the chamber. Phantoms of Rey and Kylo duel before the thrones, vicious and intense. In the end, Kylo strikes Rey down. Luke steps into the light of the dojo, a fully formed Force ghost, to Rey. She describes the vision to him, and he tells her that she has seen the future. Kylo has seen it too. Rey mentions the world Mortis, a name which turns Luke grave, a planet from a time before the Jedi or the Sith. 2 powerful beings once ruled there, one of darkness and the other light, and together they brought balance. Rey dismisses it as a myth, but Luke reminds her that he was only a myth once too. He tells her that beneath the temple there lies a power beyond what the Jedi have ever known, and she must stop Kylo Ren from attaining it at all costs. In disbelief, Rey questions why Luke would want her to kill Leia's only son, to which he answers that the Force pushes towards balance. It doesn't always show us what we want to see. Rey scoffs at the Jedi idea of balance. Darkness suffocates the light. Light extinguishes the darkness over and over. That is not balance. Rey looks outside and sees the family she's always wanted. Finn and Rose, Chewie, Leia, and Poe. She will not abandon them because the Force is telling her to. Maybe she just isn't who the Force is looking for. Luke asks her who she is. "I'm no one," she tells him. If this is true, Luke tells her, then the last Jedi is dead. She agrees. Maybe he is. On Coruscant, a new mask lowers onto the head of the damaged Kylo Ren. He breathes. It's more guttural than Vader's. In Hux's personal chambers, the Chancellor acknowledges how he's aged, touching the streak of gray in his hair. He peers into a glass case at a collection of lightsabers he's accumulated over the years. Envy fills him, and he attempts to move a coin with the Force. His face reddens with effort, but it is in vain. Despite all of his power, the Chancellor has no control over the Force. Cloaked in shadow, Kylo Ren interrupts Hux, embarrassed that the Supreme Leader caught him in such a private moment. Kylo Ren tells him that his knights say that the last Jedi slipped through Hux's fingers. Hux himself shoots back that Kylo's knights took it upon themselves to deal with the General's failure. For a moment, the Supreme Leader wonders how he should deal with Hux's failure, turning the Supreme Chancellor a shade whiter in fear. Kylo comments on how beloved Rey has grown amongst the commoners of the galaxy, but Hux thinks that fear is a far more useful tool to rule, and the people fear the First Order. Kylo Ren corrects him. They fear the Supreme Leader, and he will soon command a power that makes the destruction of planets seem insignificant. Hux asks for his orders, and is told to eliminate the Resistance. Kylo Ren will deal with Rey himself. At the Resistance base, Poe presents his case to the leadership, Leia close behind him. Poe describes the source of the transmission blockade, a jammer deep within the First Order Capitol building on Coruscant. The Resistance has been unable to find any weakness in the structure, no exhaust port or oscillator. They've learned from their previous mistakes. A small strike force will make their way to Coruscant and activate an analog communication system from the days of the Old Republic, summoning whoever will answer to war on Coruscant. Finn steps forward, volunteering to lead the strike force, as does Rose, who jokes that she will let Finn think that he's leading. Rey declines an invitation to come as well, knowing that the First Order and the Knights of Ren are actively looking for her. Their plan concocted, Leia orders to proceed with their evacuation. They'll meet at their new rendezvous point to launch the assault. Poe privately pulls Rey aside, asking her if she's okay. She tells him that she must confront Kylo Ren, and that she must go alone. Poe jokingly asks who talks like that, and she answers, "Jedi do. I'm new to this." When pressed on where she is going to go, Rey doesn't actually know how to find Mortis, but Poe has a plan and insists on coming along. He has a contact on the planet Bonadan, a Force-sensitive navigator who can find a way to anywhere. Rey is conflicted, but relents. Poe tells her that he understands that Jedi can't have emotional attachments, but that doesn't mean she has to do everything alone. As they prepare to leave, Finn is clearly still shaken from his encounter with the dying stormtrooper on Kuat. He explains this to Rose, and that he has to stop the First Order from crushing anyone else like they did to him, like they did to that dying trooper he knew from childhood. In Kylo Ren's chambers on the Capitol, the Supreme Leader gazes at Darth Vader's mask. He tells the grandfather he never knew that he understands Vader's pain, his weakness, that he let love cloud his judgment. He will succeed where Vader failed. He grasps the mask, holding it out over the ledge of the Capitol building above a layer of clouds, and he lets it go, leaving it to shatter on the streets below. Ren leaves the city heading for Rimnacor and this mysterious Tor Valum. Hux watches him leave to fulfill what the Chancellor sees as an empty promise of a dead religion, before preparing to leave himself. They've discovered the location of the Resistance base, and he wants to witness its destruction firsthand. As the Resistance base evacuates, the main party splits into 3 teams: Rey, Poe, Chewbacca, and BB-8 aboard the Millennium Falcon, Finn, Rose, R2, and 3PO on Rose's ship, the Phantom Hawk, and Leia with other Resistance leadership on the Eclipse. Rey and Finn embrace, saying goodbye, hopefully not for the last time. They've both come a long way since Jakku, and Rey tells Finn that the Resistance trusts him and that he should step up to lead. Poe unintentionally interrupts, but Finn pulls him into a brotherly hug as well. Before departing, Rey approaches Leia and tells her that she can save Ben Solo. Leia believed that once too, but now believes that the boy that she loved is dead and gone. She tells Rey to be careful because there are some things you cannot be trained for, following her eye to Poe. Rey insists that she can't act on her emotions because of the Jedi Code, but Leia dismisses this as rules written by old men thousands of years before they were both born. She takes Rey's hand like the daughter she never had, telling her that she should follow her own path. Leia had never understood what balance in the Force really meant until she met Rey. Rey is unlike Vader, unlike Luke, and her story is not written by anyone else. A massive explosion shakes the mountains around the Resistance base. The First Order has arrived. Resistance guards surround Leia and escort her to the Eclipse. She and Rey share one last look before Rey races up the Falcon's ramp after Poe. A battle takes place above Corelay, which sees all major Resistance players escape, though Leia mourns those that they had to leave behind on Corelay as the First Order destroys the planet. Another home taken from her. She feels every one of their lives getting snuffed out through her connection to the Force, a horrible burden for the General to bear. Before they too can make the jump to hyperspace, the Millennium Falcon is attacked by the Knife 9. They swerve between pieces of Corelay, some still intact with mountains, jungles, and waterfalls frozen by the cold embrace of space. The Falcon weaves in and out of the rotating chunks of the planet, flying up the face of a spinning mountain as the Knife 9 attempts to get a lock on them. Suddenly, a piece of mountaintop debris pushes the Knife 9 off course, giving the Falcon an opportunity to escape into hyperspace. Jadek Rin is able to get the Knife 9 back under control as he turns to face Hataska, suspended in an electro-oxygen chamber in some induced unconsciousness. Jadek places his hand on the glass of the chamber, asking Hataska what he sees. Hataska's hand bolts up to meet his, silently giving his fellow knight direction. Jadek turns and tells Laurel and Ott to set a course for Bonadan, hot on the Last Jedi's trail. Kylo Ren lands upon the planet Rimnacor, cold and black, veined with silver. The terrain is obsidian, with frozen trees and windswept shades and flows of white lava. He comes upon an ancient stone military fortress consumed by time, the land around it littered with skeletons and empty suits of armor, flags fluttering over broken shields, all from a battle centuries forgotten. A Sith helmet lays on the ground, the skull still visible within, a reminder that while Jedi can live on in death, the Sith become dust. Kylo presses on, entering the fortress. Within, he finds a chamber filled with broken spacecraft, ancient military technology, piles of silver ore, and a glowing white fire crackling at its center.
"Reveal yourself,"
a voice calls to him. Kylo ignites his lightsaber, both in reflex and to better illuminate himself. He tells the voice that he seeks the Sith Master Tor Valum. A spindly alien emerges from one of the mountains of junk, 7,000 years old, gray skin pulled tight over ancient muscle. It tells Kylo that he is no master, but was once called Tor Valum. He is asked if he once trained Darth Plagueis, but the creature dismisses the name, not because he does not recognize it, but as it means nothing to him. Kylo threatens the alien with death, demanding to be taught while taunting that he cannot even feel Tor Valum's presence within the Force. Tor Valum spreads a wicked smile, telling the Supreme Leader that the child feels only what he is allowed to feel. It barks an order for Kylo to remove his helmet, and is amused at how sickly the Supreme Leader has become. Kylo is asked if he wishes to obtain the power of those who came before, to take his place among the gods of Mortis, and to rule the galaxy without armies or starships, which Kylo, of course, confirms. But Tor Valum senses that he has come to fear the fragility of his body, which is why he has come to seek an ancient master's wisdom. He orders Kylo to kneel before him, and surprisingly, he does. But Tor Valum senses remorse for Kylo Ren's past actions. Sith are unrepentant, and the Supreme Leader must sever himself from his past or become no more than the skeletons outside of the Citadel. The living Force is nourishment that can be consumed, and to take life is to cheat death. Kylo Ren asks to be taught this power, submissive to his new, archaic master. The Millennium Falcon, carrying Rey, Poe, Chewbacca, and BB-8, descends onto the planet Bonadan into a valley of cylindrical mountains rising over rivers and lakes. The orbit of Bonadan has locked the planet in a permanent sunset, but the land is lit by its bustling night markets. The Falcon lands on a multi-level docking area, visually evoking a tower of lily pads. Poe suggests that Rey wear a disguise, so she is not so immediately identifiable as a Jedi, and he leads her to a merchant selling jewelry and clothes, picking out a colorful robe for Rey. As the party makes their way through the night markets, Rey is overwhelmed by the unfamiliar sights, smells, and sounds. Poe tells her that he used to visit the planet with his grandfather and sail the waterways to watch all the night market lights. He pushes Rey to dig for her own memories, and after a moment, she comes up with one of carving toy starships out of wood. She felt so loved and wonders if she imagined it. After all, her parents were no one, though Poe corrects her. No one is no one. Before they can get much further, a trio of mech troopers heading their way catches their attention. The pair duck into a small shop as the troopers approach, and kiss under Rey's headscarf to distract the troopers from their identities. Rey, somewhat surprised, asked if it worked, and Poe replies, I think so. They enter the Navigator's Den, a circular room filled with a stone floor embedded with marble and numerous cushions, each housing aliens in search of advice. Poe's contact, a small alien child named Nomi, immediately recognizes Rey as a Jedi and beckons them both forth. Reaching out through the Force, Nomi deduces that Rey seeks a planet, a place called Mortis, the first place to have known the Force. She asks Rey to envision the world and to let the Force fill her mind and reveal the destination. Marbles in the floor rise into the air, taking the three-dimensional shape of a galaxy. Rey falls into a meditative state, seeing Mortis as Nomi guides her mind. She sees a snowy mountain peak, surrounded by autumn leaves in the valleys below, a temple carved into a mountain, and the powers of light and darkness drawn together by the Force. Rey and Kylo. Rey snaps out of her vision, a flat black oval stone now at the center of the marble array. A droid paints a star map for Rey, as Nomi also informs the pair that Rey must take this journey alone. Rey makes for the door, Poe hot on her heels continuing to question the entire situation, but Rey turns once more to Nomi asking if there is another path. Nomi answers her, "There's always another path." Rose, Finn, R2-D2, and C-3PO arrive on Coruscant on the rickety Phantom Hawk, descending through the skyscraper canyons. Finn comments on how many people are living underground. Rose points out that the rich don't spend much time thinking about what, or who, they're standing on. As the group approaches the ruins of the Jedi Temple, Finn and Rose drop the droids off at street level. They'll be entering through the courtyard. Finn and Rose then land on the roof of an unfinished skyscraper, abandoned before its skeletal structure could be complete, a quarter-mile from the Jedi Temple. The pair bolt a grappling cannon into the building, firing it towards the temple. Under the shroud of night, they zipline to the temple 1,000 feet above the city streets. Rose jokes that she thought that Finn had a fear of heights. He corrects her. He's afraid of hitting the ground. They crash through a window, shattering what remains of it, landing in the barely recognizable innards of the Jedi Temple. R2 and 3PO work their way past several vagabonds squatting outside of the temple, eventually making their way to a massive kyber crystal within the atrium of the building. Finn and Rose ascend one of the temple's spires, and a search of the room at its peak returns two small, pyramid-shaped sockets. This is what they're looking for. Finn produces a pair of 5,000-year-old kyber crystals, tossing one to Rose, much to her annoyance. They click the crystals into place, and the floor opens, revealing a massive copper machine that rises up. Power flows through it, before shorting out, sparks falling to the floor. Rose wonders if anything is ever going to be easy. On Rimnikor, a boar floats in the air, struggling to gain traction on the ground it cannot reach. The animal's eyes roll back into its head, and its body withers and dies, reduced to a husk. The living force drains from the creature and into Kylo's open hand. His injured face is somewhat healed, scars recede, and his eyes grow brighter. Tor Valum smiles. Kylo demands more. But Tor Valum informs him that there is no more left. He has consumed everything left on this part of the planet. A cold wind cuts from an icy cave close by, a faint glow calling from within. Kylo wonders what's inside, and is told that within, there is a vergence. Tor Valum encourages Kylo to go see for himself. Inside, the ruby light from Kylo's lightsaber refracts along the walls, and though the cave is empty, it is not silent. A familiar breathing echoes through the halls, and the hulking shape of Darth Vader emerges from the shadows. He attacks Kylo, and though the Supreme Leader puts up a fight, he is no match for the Sith Lord. Kylo is struck down, screaming in pain, but when he examines the wound, it's not there. Likewise, Vader is vanished. Kylo Ren is alone. Enraged and disoriented, Kylo exits the cave and demands to know where Mortis is. He must find it so he can be stronger than all of those who came before. Tor Valum ignores him. Kylo Ren is not yet worthy of its power. This is not the answer Kylo wanted, and his patience has run out. He reaches out with the Force and holds Tor Valum, forcibly delving into his mind and extracting the location of Mortis from the ancient Dark Lord. Tor Valum is surprised, disappointed, and enraged by Kylo's betrayal, telling his apprentice that he gave him knowledge. He gave him everything. Kylo acquiesces and thanks him before draining the living force from the ancient being. Tor Valum's withered shell falls dead. This treason does not go unnoticed throughout the galaxy. On Bonadan, Rey suddenly collapses, She felt Kylo's strength expand. They don't have much time. At the Jedi Temple, Finn and Rose have been working diligently to fix the beacon. As Rose finishes welding a broken conductor into place, Finn asks if they think this ancient thing will really work with their modern droid messaging. Rose jokes that he's asking about the mechanics of a force-powered antenna. It's a bit out of the realm of anyone's expertise. They finish, and after a moment, a light ignites within the machine. Rose begins to tell Finn something, but is interrupted as a column of light shoots down the hollow spire. In the atrium, the light connects with the massive kyber crystal that R2 and 3PO are waiting at. R2 projects a hologram directly into the column of light, injecting it into the ancient data stream. The beacon illuminates miles of Coruscant before rocketing into space. It connects with ancient Old Republic receivers across several planets, including one overseen by an ancient Bindu monk. Others include Mon Cala, Bathory, and the pirate world Trandosha, ruled by the bounty hunter turned Sultan Bosk. On every world the light touches, every droid projects a hologram of Leia to be heard by anyone who will listen, calling anyone willing to fight for their freedom to rise up against the oppression that now rules the galaxy. They have lived in the shadow of the First Order for too long, and it is now time to step into the light. The message is even heard aboard starships, like the Eclipse, where the Resistance grows even more hopeful. But it also gets the attention of Kylo Ren, who sees the light streaking across the stars in the sky as he marches towards his ship on Rimnikor. He moves to a rocky overlook, closes his eyes, and holds his hands towards the light. Concentrating, the earth vibrates around him, and the light halts in the sky, suspended in space and thrumming as pressure builds. The beam grows in intensity at its point of origin in Coruscant, and the receiver quakes under its immense power. Finn and Rose realize something is wrong just in time, diving away from the ancient device as it explodes, extinguishing Leia's message. All the Resistance can do is hope that it was enough, and that it reached enough ears to ignite the fires of revolution. Rose and Finn climb from the rubble, bruised but okay for now. Suddenly, a trio of TIE fighters appear over the temple, sent to investigate the light, aiming their cannons through the open arched windows. Finn and Rose have to get out of there, now. Finn clips onto one of the zip wires, and Rose grabs onto him, zooming away from the temple spire as it is engulfed in fire behind them. R2 and 3PO quietly escape through the courtyard below. The trio of TIE fighters turn and pursue Finn and Rose, but the latter draws her weapon and shoots at the enemy ships. She manages to shatter the windshield of one, hitting the pilot and sending the ship spinning onto the streets below. But Rose herself is clipped by blaster fire, and the zipline snaps as the temple spire crumbles and collapses. Rose loses her grip and falls into the darkness. Devastated, Finn manages to swing into an open window of the unfinished skyscraper. The TIEs hover around the skeletal structure on either side, firing blaster bolt after blaster bolt into it. Finn is unable to even look for Rose, running for his life as blasts ricochet off steel girders around him, eventually escaping into an open stairwell. On the other side of the galaxy, Rey feels Finn's grief, collapsing to the ground in one of Bonadan's night markets. Poe reaches down to console her, but something in the crowd beyond her catches his eye. It's Tasca Rin, with Ott and Laurel on his either side, making their way directly towards them. Rey reaches for her lightsaber, but Poe stops her. They can't fight the Knights of Ren here. There are too many innocent lives that would be put in danger. As the Rins approach, Rey clutches her fist in a fury, and Forrest pushes everything around her away, including the Knights and Poe. He flies over the edge of the market walls and into the water below as Rey jumps onto the dock and unhooks a razor sail. She calls for Poe to get on, and he swims over to board the craft. Rey then uses the Force to fill the sail and launch them into the bay. Despite the boat's incredible speed, blaster fire explodes into the water all around them. The Knife 9 speeds over the water in pursuit towards them. Poe takes the helm and guides them towards the Falcon as Rey mans the craft's harpoon laser, mounted on its front. For a moment, she considers firing at the Knife 9, but at the last second, aims towards the cord connecting the sail to the craft. She calls for Poe to hold on, disconnecting the sail and launching the pair upward like parasailers. Rey guides the sail to the Falcon's dock as the razor sail hits the shore and explodes. The Knife 9 banks away, turning right towards the landing pad where the Falcon waits. Chewbacca emerges from the Falcon, meeting up with Rey and Poe as they land, but another landing pad lowers to meet them, the 4 Knights of Ren on it and waiting to strike. Before they can, Rey hurls herself onto the landing pad, attacking relentlessly. Her ferociousness makes up for their superior numbers. Poe and Chewie take aim at JJ Ren, unloading on the Knight, though he expertly deflects their blasts while firing back with a pistol in his free hand. Rey takes on Hataska and his Darksaber, Force pushing him over the edge of the landing pad. Ott and Laurel keep on Rey and attack in sync, somehow coordinating with an unseen hive communication. Poe is grazed by one of JJ's blasts, welling a rage within Rey. She kicks Laurel away before spinning towards Ott. He is outmatched one-on-one, and she strikes him dead. She then turns to Laurel, Force pulling the Knight and impaling him on her lightsaber. Before Rey can come to Poe's aid, Hataska returns, jumping back on the landing pad and swinging wildly at the Jedi. Rey disconnects her double-bladed lightsaber to deflect Hataska's blows, one blade clenched with the Darksaber and the other still skewering Laurel's chest. Chewie helps Poe get to cover before peppering JJ with bowcaster fire. The Knight is struggling to deflect the more powerful shots as Chewbacca advances on him. Eventually, the Wookiee reaches JJ, grabbing his neck and hurling him off the landing pad. He then lifts his bowcaster and fires, hitting JJ in midair. Hataska's brutal strikes graze Rey, and she drops her lightsaber before falling on her back unarmed. The Knight stands over her, raising his Darksaber for the kill, but something sparks within Rey. She recognizes his mask, flashing back to dark figures standing in the rain, voices screaming, lightning flashes, and a younger Rey sees Hataska Ren's mask. Vengeful anger fills Rey. Her teeth clench, and she raises a hand to Hataska as he swings down to cut into her. Force lightning flows from Rey's fingertips, striking the Knight and electrocuting him. His smoking body falls, lifeless. Rey is horrified, telling Poe and Chewie, and perhaps herself, that she had no choice. Poe brushes it off. That's the thing Jedi do, right? Chewie and Poe head towards the Falcon, but Rey does not follow. She tells Poe that where she is going, he cannot follow, and she lies, telling him that the Resistance needs Poe more than she does right now. Poe begs her to get on the ship, but she does not. She knows what she must do, and she hates it. She uses a Jedi mind trick, telling him that he will leave this place and go help the Resistance. He begs her not to do this, battling her influence. She strokes the bleeding gash on his forehead and again uses the trick. Weaker this time, he refuses. She takes his face in her hand and kisses him before repeating that he must go. Finally, he abides, and Chewbacca and BB-8 reluctantly follow, boarding the Falcon. As the ramp rises, Poe solemnly holds up his hand goodbye before the Falcon ascends into the sky. Rey commandeers the Knife 9, placing Nomi's hand-drawn map on the ship's console and resting her lightsaber above it. She removes the robe Poe picked out for her, revealing her black warrior's clothing beneath, and sadly uses the robe to bandage her wound. She catches her reflection. She is a Jedi. The Knife 9 lifts into the sky and rockets into space. Above Rimnicor, Kylo Ren's TIE silencer exits the planet's atmosphere. He receives a holocom transmission from Chancellor Hux, informing him of the attempted override of the communications blockade. The Supreme Leader taunts the Chancellor, asking him if he really didn't know who stopped them. Hux's face betrays him. He didn't know. The Chancellor postulates that this treachery must not stand, and Kylo agrees, ordering Hux to show the might of their empire. A shape sneaks from the dilapidated outline of a skyscraper on Coruscant, bleeding and disoriented. Finn believes that he just watched a dear friend die, but he has no time to stop and rest. Voices echo in the distance, flashlights scanning the cityscape, searching for him. He ducks down an alleyway after seeing stormtroopers aboard ATLTs, single-rider walkers, scanning the dark with their floodlights. Finn sinks into the shadow, spying a small light up ahead. It's a single stormtrooper investigating the alleyway where he hides. He doesn't see Finn behind him, defenseless when Finn shoves a handheld stunning device onto the back of his neck. Finn confiscates his weapon, holding him at blaster point and ordering the trooper to take off his helmet. Beneath the mask is a young man, eyes scared and disillusioned. This is RK-514. Finn asks him what he remembers, how far back his memories go, if he remembers his parents or when he was taken. RK-514 doesn't know, but Finn insists that he does. He's been conditioned by the First Order under the guise of training. RK-514 slowly recognizes Finn as the famous traitor, FN-2187, which Finn confirms. But he also tells RK-514 that they are brothers. He understands that being a stormtrooper isn't what they said it would be, that the things that they're ordered to do aren't right. Finn takes RK's comlink and asks him if he remembers his name. The stormtrooper shakes his head no, and Finn tells him to get one, and then to find something worth fighting for. He drops into a nearby sewer, leaving the stormtrooper alone with his thoughts. The Eclipse approaches the Resistance rendezvous point, though Leia is wrought with uncertainty. As Connix enters the room, Leia makes a decision and orders that an Imperial shuttle be prepared. Alone again, Leia removes her general's bars and lifts the hood of her robe above her head. Luke speaks to her, and they both feel that Kylo Ren is in great pain. His ghost steps to her side and tells her that Kylo will soon have more power than Vader ever did. Leia counters that Rey will as well, but Luke believes that she feels too much love and anger. He fears that her pain and loss will only lead her to the dark side. Leia smiles, regarding her brother, but he's wrong. Leia has lost everything and everyone, more than once, and yet she still chooses to love. She still walks in the light. Rey may not follow the path of the Jedi blazed by those who came before her, but she is still their only hope. In the First Order capital, Rose awakens on a torture rack in an Inquisition chamber. Hux is there and demands to know what they changed the Eclipse signature code to so that the First Order may track it. Rose jokes that she doesn't remember and that she was told to pick something easy like Life Day, but didn't listen. Frustrated, Hux holds out his hand and closes his eyes, concentrating. He's attempting to probe Rose's mind with the Force, like he has seen Kylo Ren do before, but he cannot. Rose taunts the Chancellor for his failed attempt, and Hux resigns that he will be unable to extract the information he desires with that method. But not to worry, they have other ways. A blast door opens, revealing an electric torture device. Rose braces for a painful defiance. An Imperial shuttle carrying Leia descends upon the planet Oliphorn, a backwater world filled with sulfur baths and earth-hued steam erupting from cracks on its surface. The shuttle lands in a First Order-controlled village, and Leia moves through the streets, pulling the hood of her white robe over her face. She's like a ghost, moving unseen. Eventually, she enters a cabaret club, classy and smoke-filled. There are very few customers left for the day, and the servers are cleaning up, cashing out for the evening. Leia looms over the last customer left, Lando Calrissian, who is considering a large pile of credits he's earned that evening. The old smuggler is happy to see Leia and pulls her into a private lounge. She shouldn't be seen here for both their sakes. Lando asks Leia what he can do for her, though he doubts it'll be much. Almost all of his clientele these days are First Order, and their grip grows tighter every day. She tells him that she needs his help. Ships, pilots, any smuggler Lando knows, though Lando did promise Han that he'd take care of Leia if something happened to him, to which Leia implies that she'd be the one taking care of Lando, let's be real. He isn't sure that helping the Resistance crash into the First Order and die is something Han would have wanted. Some stormtroopers enter the cabaret, and Lando leads Leia to a private exit before they can find her. On their way to her shuttle, she asks him to help fight against the First Order, but Lando is disillusioned. They already won a war once, and what good did it do? Leia says that it proved that the impossible can be done. He tells her that he would do almost anything for her, but apologizes. This, Lando can't do. Her shuttle leaves as they make eye contact again. Lando conflicted. In deep space, the Knife 9 drops out of light speed. Rey gazes out of the cockpit window at swirling red and blue clouds, violently orbiting an ominous black hole. This is the galactic void. All navigational equipment blinks out, and alarms blare as the ship begins to rattle. The black hole is pulling in the Knife 9, but Rey isn't looking to escape. Instead, she recalculates the lightspeed computer and makes a jump directly into the void. Stars streak forward in infinite straight lines, but then twist and bend as she passes through. Rey's face becomes an echo of itself, and she witnesses subliminal flashbacks of her journey so far, on Jakku and Takodana, Dakar and Starkiller Base, Ahch-To and Bonadan, and then it all stops. Silence. Her eyes flutter open, and ahead of her is a lonely planet. No stars visible around it, only deep, inky darkness. A third of the planet is coated in heavy, swirling clouds, another rich with green vegetation. The third in between is orange and red. This is Mortis. The power on the ship drops out completely, and the Knife 9 goes into a freefall over the planet. Rey manages to pilot the gliding ship over treetops before crashing into a riverbed. In fear, tiny fish jump out of the water, running away into the forest. This is a strange place. Rey pries herself from the wreckage and sloshes to land, glancing back at the ruined Knife 9. There's no turning back now. She hikes through the forest, spring turning to summer, and then to fall at an accelerated pace as she continues. Ahead, the trees clear over a steep ledge, and a towering mountain rises in the distance, a temple barely visible at its summit. On the other side of the mountain, Kylo Ren's TIE silencer lands smoothly in a clearing of dead trees covered in snow. He looks ahead, at the temple shrouded in mist, and then at a natural stone bridge that spans a deep canyon. On either side, tall granite juts up from the ground, shaped into primitive faces. A whisper on the wind swirls around him. The streets of Coruscant are empty and silent. R2-D2 and C-3PO emerge from an abandoned building, two small figures in a desolate urban expanse. A shadow falls upon them both, its first-order transports descending through the morning mist, carrying an army of brute troopers. Their armor is thicker than a stormtrooper's, made of shining metallic chrome. They are Mandalorian in origin. The troops systematically work their way through the streets, knocking down civilians and pushing citizens into prison crafts. Children are separated from their parents and herded onto transports bound for conditioning camps. Even nearby stormtroopers look on in disgust, disturbed by the violence of these brood troopers. In the sewer underground, Finn jets out of a chute, lodging his arm in a gelatinous mass. Womp rats lick his face before running away, scared off by a colossal gyrock larva creature the width of the entire tunnel. A gaping, toothy maw slowly sucks in the gelatinous form Finn is stuck in. He desperately tries to escape as the gyrock gets closer and closer, unable to free himself until a hatch above him opens, pouring in natural light. Above him is Dade, the kid who witnessed Hux's execution of the Resistance mole on the Capitol Square. Dade helps free Finn, pulling the shaking man up and out of the sewer. Dade offers his hand and his name, recognizing Finn as a Resistance fighter. They've been tracking Finn since he and Rose landed on Coruscant. He flashes his own Resistance ring to Finn, encouraging him to follow him before something worse than the gyrock comes along. Finn is led through the sewer as Dade explains that the First Order purged a 10-mile radius around the Capitol after blocking communications. Some, like Dade, escaped. Most were taken to conditioning camps. The pair enter an abandoned underground prison, full of thousands of citizens who escaped the purge. Some have been living in this oppression since the days of the Rebel Alliance. The First Order fears them. They have weapons and numbers, but they just need to resolve to stand up and fight. Finn looks around at 1,000 faces, fervent and brave. All they need is a leader, and Finn realizes now they have one. Finn climbs to the top of the prison command tower and fires up the comm system. He encourages these downtrodden civilians to stand up and fight. The First Order rules through fear, wearing masks to frighten them, but it's the First Order who are the ones who are scared. They can take the capital, and if they do, the entire galaxy will follow. A revolution begins here. A figure scales an icy peak on Mortis, blasted by wind and sleet. Rey reaches a plateau, finding statues of robed ancients peering at her. These were not Jedi. The storm of snow dust picks up, obscuring her vision as voices echo around her. Suddenly, she's back on the warm sands of Jakku as a child's voice screams out. It's a younger Rey calling out to her parents. Her mother breaks away from her father before he catches her. They are both heartbroken, but he tells her that they cannot stay. It's too dangerous. Her mother promises the younger Rey that they will return as their ship rises into the sky. The sand it kicks up turns white, becoming snow once more. She calls out to Luke, wanting to know why her parents were so scared, but only wind answers her. Frustration wells within Rey, and she cuts one of the ancient statues in half. Kylo hikes through a winter forest, glimpses of the temple breaking through the canopy above, before he comes across a house in the woods. Someone seems to live here, but it's a vision. A young Ben Solo wearing a hooded black robe nears the house as Kylo watches from the shadows of the tree line. Ben opens the door, and before him stands Han Solo, looking at his son with sadness and fear. He asks Ben what he's doing, but his son insists that Ben isn't his name anymore. He's leaving, and he's not coming back. There's a greater destiny waiting for him out there. Han tells him that these are just empty promises Snoke has filled his mind with, and that everything he needs is right here. Ben insists that Han just doesn't understand, which Han concedes, but Leia does. However, Ben says she sent him away. She's afraid of him. But Ben doesn't understand that she sent him away to learn and grow. Han reaches for Ben's lightsaber, and suddenly they're on a catwalk on Starkiller Base. Kylo watches as Ben, now older, plunges the blade through Han Solo. A moment later, Kylo is back on Mortis, shaken and alone as he continues up the mountain. The streets of Coruscant are quiet and empty as R2-D2 and C-3PO hide from a First Order AT-MT walker investigating a smoldering, broken tank. In a nearby building, Finn and 100 new Resistance fighters hunker down a few floors up. The head of the AT-MT is just below them outside. At Finn's command, the People's Resistance assault the AT-MT, grappling onto the walker like pirates boarding a ship. A hole is cut into the walker's hatch, and Finn tosses a shock detonator inside. After a brief electric pulse, the pilots slump over the controls, and Finn takes the helm. The side panels of the walker are opened and the People's Resistance grapple inside. A pair of TIE choppers fly overhead, and Finn blasts them out of the sky. The revolution begins today. At the Capitol, Hux is pacing as Rose is tortured. He is informed that a widespread insurrection has begun, and the leader is a former FN unit aided by an organized regiment. Frustrated, Hux orders more brute troopers to be dispatched to take care of it, despite how expensive and inexperienced the mercenaries are. Hux postulates that perhaps money is the only thing that inspires loyalty anymore. Inside the interrogation chamber, Rose is injured but not broken. She overhears that she is being transported to a maximum security cell block and feigns unconsciousness. As she's being dragged away, Rose grabs one of the officer's electric tasers and incapacitates them both before slipping away. Outside, Finn leads his revolution towards the Imperial capital and spies C-3PO outside amongst the cheering crowd. As he exits the AT-MT for a better look at the droid, he is suddenly yanked out by a hostile brute trooper that has landed on the walker. The pair engage in a fistfight 50 feet off the ground, Finn at a massive disadvantage against the brute. It's like fighting a knight in armor barehanded. Finn tackles the brute and they tumble off the AT-MT, landing on the trooper's back on the ground. Still, the brute manages to gain the upper hand, finding a discarded blaster and holding Finn down with his foot. But as he's about to shoot, the brute is suddenly killed by a barrage of laser fire. Finn looks up to see a unit of stormtroopers discarding their helmets and joining the People's Resistance, led by RK-514, the trooper he encountered earlier. He helps Finn to his feet, telling him that his name is Rafe. Finn likes it. The Eclipse receives a message informing them that Finn is alive and leading an army to storm the capital. But they're asking for reinforcements. Leia is hesitant. All they have is what is on the Eclipse, and 100 pilots won't win a war. Poe arrives with Chewbacca and BB-8, and Leia questions where Rey is, dreading the answer. Poe tells her that Rey went to face Kylo Ren on her own, and that they need to go help Finn destroy the transmission jammer now. Leia isn't sure. It's reckless and millions may die, but Poe insists. Leia and her rebels fought and won their war. It's time that Poe and his resistance fought theirs. She relents, setting a course for Coruscant. On Mortis, Kylo reaches the zenith of the mountaintop, the temple cut into the rock before him. He reaches out, the door bending to his will and opening as thousands of years' worth of dust spills away from its carved surface. Still, he doesn't open it. He feels that he is not alone. He turns to face Rey, his new intimidating mask surprising her. The two stalk around one another, Kylo proclaiming that he is stronger than Vader or Luke, and Rey pointing out how this power has left him afraid, empty, and alone. He tells her that he doesn't have to be alone. They could rule this galaxy, just as the ancients did, the dark side and the light together. But Rey fervently declines. Does he really think she would join him after everything he has done to the people she cares about? Rey asks him if he was waiting until they were alone like this to tell her the truth, to weaken her with the knowledge that her parents did not sell her for drinking money. They were hiding her from Kylo. He tells her that Snoke ordered him to find anyone who might be powerful enough to destroy him. It did not take long to find Rey, strong with the Force even as a child. He knows that she blames him for her life stuck on Jakku, but she should be thankful she was safe and he killed her parents. The Force ripples around Rey, exploding outwards from her. She ignites her dual-bladed lightsaber and Kylo ignites his. Rey tells him that if he wants to continue, he will have to kill her too, just like he killed her parents and Han and millions of others. Sadly, he says that he knows and attacks. With Leia at the helm, the Eclipse exits hyperspace above Coruscant, firing on the First Order Sentinels around the planet. She orders all ships in the fleet to make planetfall, because surprise is the only advantage they have right now. Poe races to the Falcon to join the exiting ships, telling Chewie and BB-8 to go to their own X-Wing. They'll need every pilot they can get out there. Chewbacca picks out an orange X-Wing and gets in. The capital has detected the Eclipse, and Hux orders that all destroyers be summoned to Coruscant. They can end this uprising and squash the resistance in a single day. In space, Poe rockets out of the Eclipse on the Falcon, but is soon chased by 3 TIE hunters, each of which is destroyed in quick succession before they can even scratch the Falcon. It's Chewie. Under his breath, Poe says Chewbacca is one hell of a pilot. Finn marches at the head of the Revolutionary Army, Rafe and his rebel troopers alongside him, heading towards the capital. Thousands have joined them now, some with blasters, others with nothing but clubs or pipes. Ahead of them, lockstep boots move to meet them, 1,000 riot-suppressing brute troopers guarding the capital. Behind the brutes, First Order walkers and tanks appear through the fog. Finn orders his revolutionaries to stand their ground as a true battle erupts in the streets. Above the fray, TIE bombers drop their payloads and crater the streets ahead of the revolutionaries. They are about to be decimated, but a fleet of X-Wings and B-Wings dive from the sky and take them out. The People's Resistance cheer at the skies as Resistance transports and heavily modified First Order attack vehicles from the Eclipse land on the boulevard behind them. The Temple of Mortis is illuminated by errant flashes of blue and red as Rey and Kylo clash their lightsabers. Their fight is merciless. Ancient statues crumble as rain pounds the stairs where they battle. Rey manages to get a good hit in, slicing the bottom right half of Kylo's mask clean off. He removes it and tosses it away, retaliating with a strike that cauterizes a wound across her left cheek to the right side of her forehead. She falls to the ground, clutching her eyes, opening them to see nothing but abstract blurs. She's blind, blood dripping down her face. Kylo stands over her, his lightsaber pointed towards her, but he does not strike. Instead, he just turns and enters the temple alone. A finalizer Star Destroyer breaks out of hyperspace above Coruscant, firing on the Eclipse as Leia orders to return fire. The destroyer is no match for the might of the massive firepower aboard the Eclipse, stuttering and exploding after ion cannons rain fire upon it. However, before the Resistance crew can celebrate, 10 more destroyers exit hyperspace. Leia's confidence drains, but they fight on. In the city streets, squadrons of X-Wings, B-Wings, and A-Wings keep on the attack. Hux looks on and grows irritated, questioning why the battle is not yet over. The Eclipse is more powerful than expected, and the First Order fleet was not equipped to engage a ship of that magnitude. Rose sneaks through the capital, ducking into a recess as a procession of soldiers and officers pass her by. The commander says to ready the hyperdrive. If the Resistance breaches the defenses, they're going to jump to light speed. Rose holds in a gasp. The Capitol building is a ship. From her hideout, she watches as some First Order tech officers open a door and scan it with their ID bars. Remembering the ID bars she stole from the First Order officers from the Eclipse, she sneaks over to the door and opens it, finding the transmission jammer attached to the ceiling of a massive room encased in armor. She has no way over to it, but slips behind a console, opens a panel on the floor, and disappears inside. Here, she finds a panel to the hyperdrive's computer, opens it, and goes to work on its motherboard. Chewie descends from the atmosphere to help out closer to the Capitol, but takes a lot of damage from a fleet of TIEs and crash lands close to Monument Square. Finn and his squad rush to aid the pilot and are surprised to find Chewbacca and BB-8. Finn wonders where Chewie learned to fly like that. He replies, in a roar that goes misunderstood, "Before you were born." More AT-MTs emerge from the fog as the Capitol rains fire from above. On the Eclipse, Connix informs Leia that their agent inside the Capitol is contacting them. Leia is confused. We have an agent on the inside? It's Rose. She tells them that the Capitol is a ship and they plan to escape. She can disable the hyperdrive, but only if she gets key codes from R2's memory bank. Leia patches Rose in with Finn, who is with R2, and both are surprised and overjoyed to find out that the other is even alive. Finn spots a terminal where R2 can transfer the information, but root troopers pour out into the square between them and the console. They're going to have to make a run for it, but R2 suddenly takes a direct hit from a cannon blast and falls, silent and scorched black. His circuits are dead. Finn realizes what's happened and calls for Chewie to cover him. He regretfully rips over R2's front panel and removes his memory drive, apologizing to the inactive droid. He calls for BB-8 and inserts the memory drive into him, instructing the droid to make a run for that terminal. In fact, they all do, with Finn, Chewie, and Rafe's rebel troopers covering the BB-8 unit. But 3PO stays behind, kneeling over R2's body. Finn tells him that they have to move, but 3PO refuses, cradling R2. With emotion we've never seen before, 3PO insists that he cannot leave the droid. Finn is just crushed by it all. Chewbacca leans down and hauls the broken R2 over his back. They're not going to leave him behind, but the odds are not looking in their favor on the ground or above in the atmosphere. A long shadow precedes Kylo Ren as he enters the temple, into a cavern made of stone. Statues of ancients look down upon a deep void at its center, sealed shut with a slab of unpolished marble. Kylo reaches out, willing the slab to slide off and fall to the ground with a thud. He looks into the well, deep into the heart of Mortis. But it is empty. Just a hole in the ground. Furious, Kylo searches the rune-covered wall for answers, but there are none. His rage overtakes him, and he slashes out at the statues with his lightsaber, scarring the ancients. Luke steps into the light of the cavern, a thin blue gold tracing his form, and he tells Kylo that he is lost. The dark side has failed him, just like it failed Vader. Kylo points out that Vader was weak, that the Jedi are all dead and gone now, and the few that remain are just ghosts. Luke tells him that love for his family saved Vader, and he wishes that it could have saved Ben too. This pushes Kylo over the edge. He swings at the Phantom before him, but Luke reaches up and catches the blade in mid-air. He is stronger now than Kylo could possibly imagine, but Ren insists that he is stronger than any Skywalker has been before him. Luke disagrees. Kylo Ren is no Skywalker. Outside, still beaten and bleeding in the rain, Rey drags herself up the stairs to the temple. The pain is too much, and she collapses once again. She calls for Luke, and Luke hears her. He tells Kylo, and perhaps Rey too, what Obi-Wan once told him. The Force surrounds us. It penetrates us. It binds the galaxy together. Light years away, Leia feels her pain and reaches out to her. As she works on the capital hyperdrive, fingertips bleeding, Rose feels a connection. In the Falcon above Coruscant, Poe feels it too. Finn crouches low behind cover, lasers flying overhead, and he looks to the sky as he feels the same connection. He tells Rey to fight on, and Rey hears him. All of them are with her. With all of her strength, the last Jedi rises in the rain. She unwraps a strip of cloth from her bandaged hand and covers her damaged eyes. Luke smiles and vanishes. Beyond where he once stood, Rey stands tall in the arched doorway of the temple. She tells Kylo that their masters were wrong. She will not deny her anger, nor will she reject her love. She is the darkness and the light. She is balance. Kylo insists that Rey is nothing and no one, but she recalls what Poe told her on Bonadan. No one is no one. Kylo charges forward and they battle in the chamber, Rey guided by the Force. Above Coruscant, Leia looks on in grief as Resistance cruisers plummet into the atmosphere in fiery carnage. It's over. Connix tells the general that more ships are arriving from the Outer Rim. Leia orders that they prepare for retreat, but Connix tells her that they aren't First Order ships. In the starfield ahead, thousands of ships exit hyperspace. A massive fleet of smugglers and thieves led by Lando Calrissian in his personal starship, the Lady Luck. Over the comm, he tells Leia that he figured she could use a few scoundrels. The ragtag fleet attacks, making up for the First Order's superior battleships with their massive numbers. The First Order enters full retreat. The smuggler ships and the Millennium Falcon enter the atmosphere, shooting down the TIEs patrolling the city skies. BB-8 reaches the terminal at the Capitol base and transmits the key codes to Rose. The Falcon flies over Finn and Chewie, crashing through the legs of multiple AT-MT walkers, cutting the mechanical beasts off at the knee. The ship grinds to a halt at the base of the Capitol, the accumulated pile of fallen walkers and crashed ship creating a makeshift barricade on its front steps. Hux sees the Falcon outside and orders that they bomb the city and kill every last being in it. But they are outnumbered. Hux realizes that he is lost. He storms into his chamber, towards his collection of lightsabers. He picks one out, one of his prized pieces, and impales himself on its purple blade. He kneels, the saber protruding from his back, taking a final look out of his window at the First Order ships descending in smoke and fire before slumping on the floor, dead. On Mortis, Kylo counters Rey's every move. They are evenly matched, like flame and shadow, but Rey eventually gets the upper hand, slashing and catching his lightsaber hilt. It's destroyed and several fingers from his left hand are removed along with it. Kylo stumbles backwards, towards the empty well, looking at his hand in disbelief. He falls to a knee, Rey standing over him. Anger flowing through her, she separates her lightsaber, holding one of the blade points to Kylo's chest. He is stunned by the woman before him. She has an unfathomable amount of the living force within her. Teeth clenched, eyes furious, he reaches out the palm of his good hand, extracting the living force from Rey as Tor Valum taught him to. Screaming in agony, Rey rises into the air, life draining from her. Kylo's hand is healed as he stands tall. His face has returned to normal, black veins receding and youth filling his flesh. He looks beyond Rey, to the well of Mortis, and tells her everyone was wrong. The power of Mortis cannot be taken, but this planet is nothing compared to what Rey carries inside of her. He drains more and more of her living force away. She is dying, but with the last of her strength, She reaches out to him, offering her hand. Across the galaxy, Leia feels the disturbance. She feels Rey's pain and Kylo's conflict. She calls out to her son, to Ben Solo, her voice carried by the Force, and he hears her. She begs him to come back and to help them. Kylo stops, feeling the love that he thought destroyed Darth Vader. But it does not make him feel weak. He looks at Rey's outstretched hand and takes it, the living force he stole from her returning as it seeps out of Kylo Ren. Both light and darkness swirl within Rey. They both collapse. Rey returned to her full strength, but Kylo now an empty shell, a man left without any power. He is barely grasping to life now, and he tells Rey that her name is Solana, Rey Solana. With a look full of longing, Ben Solo dies, the light dim in his eyes, but still there within the darkness. Finn appears out of the smoke on Coruscant, the capital steps before him. He is blood-stained and dirty, but behind him stands Rafe and his renegade stormtroopers alongside the People's Resistance. Finn is now a hero, a leader. Poe climbs out of the Falcon as Chewbacca races to help him. Poe spots a fallen Resistance flag in the wreckage, picking it up and handing it to Finn. The trio scale the barricade and wave the flag for all to see. The Resistance has won this day. The ground shakes suddenly as the First Order capital breaks away from its moorings. It rises into the sky, leaving behind a thunderous boom. Finn panics. Rose is still on board that ship. Rose races through the quaking capital, checking a hand-drawn map she's made on her palm, and rounds a corner towards a bay of escape pods. She manages to climb inside one, launching onto the city streets before the capital leaves the atmosphere. Finn rushes to the escape pod, cradling her face and asking if she's okay. She touches his hand affectionately. She's fine. She tells her friend that she could not figure out how to disable the hyperdrive in time, so she made some adjustments to their nav computer instead. Before she can finish her sentence, there is a world-shattering crack. The capital jumps to light speed, but collides with a distant planet. The impact is so massive it can be seen for light years. Rose has single-handedly destroyed the capital ship. On the Eclipse, the explosion deep in space is so powerful that Leia has to shield her eyes. But she knows what this is, a beacon of hope. Radio communications crackle to life, a cacophony of voices filling every frequency calling for citizens to rise up against the remaining First Order. Back on the planet's surface, the People's Resistance celebrates, but Poe looks to Finn. They both feel it. Their connection to Rey is gone. She now lies alone, flat on the floor of the Temple of Mortis. There is silence, until light slowly engulfs the room. Glimmers of energy flicker like fireflies in the darkness. Rey opens her eyes, now healed and unburdened, to see the astral plane before her. 3 figures move towards her, materializing into Yoda, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and Luke Skywalker. She asks them if this place is death, but it is not. This is a place where there is no such thing as death. The trio tell Rey that she has taught them much, that she has succeeded where all before her failed. Their point of view was narrow. Rey embraced both the dark side and the light and found balance within. But they tell her that she has one last choice to make. She can remain here, where there is serenity and knowledge and peace. Those who have died are here, unforgotten. Or she can return to the galaxy, where there is pain and suffering and the inevitable loss of those that she loves. But she will love, and she will be alive. She considers settling on a life that she has not yet had a chance to live, and returns to the galaxy. The last thing she hears in the astral plane is Obi-Wan telling her that she is a Jedi, and she will not be the last. Some time passes. On Coruscant, the city lays in ruin, but thousands of citizens fill the square at the site of the old capital, free and happy and celebrating. Leia stands in elegant white, Lando and her other top generals alongside her. Before them stand Finn, Rose, Poe, and Chewbacca. She places a medal of honor around each of their necks. They are the heroes of the Resistance. Sometime later, at a series of landing platforms, Leia stands with Finn, Rose, and BB-8. She cannot feel Rey anymore, only a calming balance, but Finn thinks that balance is Rey. Leia approaches Poe, Chewbacca, and BB-8 as they prepare the Falcon, rebuilt and looking better than it has in decades, pressing the beacon bracelet that she once shared with Rey into Poe's palm. He will never stop looking for her. Chewbacca hugs Leia as Finn approaches Poe with the old leather jacket that he once gave him. Finn returns it, telling Poe that it's for good luck before they embrace as brothers. Poe and Chewbacca board the Falcon, BB-8 staying behind with Finn. Poe places Rey's beacon in the Falcon cockpit, where Han Solo's dice once hung, before the Falcon rises and jets off into the starfield above Coruscant. Finn, Rose, and BB-8 board the Phantom Hawk, rocketing off in the opposite direction. Leia checks in with C-3PO, who is overseeing R2-D2's repair. All that's left is to cycle through his memory bank, and hopefully R2 will be back to his old self once more. Leia leans down, inserting the memory drive into R2's chassis, an image similar to when she first inserted her message for Obi-Wan Kenobi into the droid all those years ago. R2 reboots, his circuits coming to life, as holograms of his memories since his early adventures with Obi-Wan, Qui-Gon Jinn, and Anakin Skywalker flash before them. He's back, alive and well. Leia leaves the droids alone and looks up at the stars. One falls, giving her peace. Some time passes before we find a serene, sun-dappled ranch in rolling green fields of tall grass on the planet Modesta. Finn sits with a circle of young children rescued from across the galaxy. Dade from the People's Resistance is with them, as is the child Finn and Rose met on Canto Bight. Finn recounts the adventures he had with Rey and the Resistance, and tells them that he believes that she'll be back someday, and they will all be there waiting for her when she does. The kids smile. They like that ending. They go outside to play, each of the children displaying that they are Force-sensitive. Finn and Rose have built this refuge for them to live safely for the first time in almost a century. Finn leans against a post on the front steps of the ranch's porch, gazing out at the twin sunset that washes his face. But something in that sunset changes his wistful expression. It's unclear at first, but then realization. Across the galaxy, Poe and Chewie race in the Falcon at light speed. The beacon hanging above the dash slowly begins to glow. Poe sees it, his eyes wide. They turn the ship around. Finn notices a glimmer of light in the distance on Modesta, Rose joining him and shielding her eyes from the sun's. A familiar silhouette walks towards them, and BB-8 rushes towards it, beeping excitedly. It's Rey Solana, her eyes restored, and only a faint scar across her face to mark where the damage had once been. She walks towards the homestead, the kids charging forward to meet her. She will train these children, passing on what she has learned to a new generation of Jedi. Balance has been restored, and peace and justice have been returned to the galaxy. Duel of the Fates is not the only potential sequel to the Star Wars franchise that has been lost to legends, going back as far to the 1970s with Splinter of the Mind's Eye. In the 1990s, there was even a series of novels called the Thrawn Trilogy that many fans consider to be the true sequel trilogy, and we're covering all of those stories here on this channel. If you're interested in any of that, check out my videos talking about them both. What did you think of Duel of the Fates as compared to the Rise of Skywalker? This story has some flaws, but nothing I don't think couldn't have been ironed out with another draft or two, and I personally greatly prefer this to the Rise of Skywalker. I know that Rian Johnson's additions to the canon were controversial, but I appreciate that Trevorrow and Connolly attempted to continue his ideas rather than throwing them out, baby bathwater and all. Anyway, please remember to like this video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe if you want to see more lore breakdowns, world-building details, and secrets and Easter eggs from your favorite fantasy, science fiction, and superhero franchises. You can also ring the bell if you want to be notified every time I upload. All of that stuff seriously does help out, and it actually lets YouTube know that, hey, maybe you should show the people that subscribe the videos that they want to see. Anyway, if you're here after this long video, as always, thank you so much for watching, and until next time.